So I was thinking about Tom's story about driving in the winter in New England, and this is a story about the winter in New England, but I graduated from Dartmouth College. Where is it? At the height of the Vietnam War. And I was pretty sure that Uncle Sam had an all-expenses-paid trip to Saigon that he wanted me to take, and I didn't really want to go. So I decided to stay in northern New England where there was a teacher shortage at the time, take a job teaching social studies in a high school there, where I had the possibility of an occupational deferment. I had several friends who were in the same boat, and we decided to rent a house together, and they found a place that was on 80 acres of beautiful rolling Vermont hills near Heartland, Vermont. It was absolutely gorgeous. There were fields, there were stone fences, there were woods at the top of the hill where the deer came out every night, several creeks. We got there in the summer. It was 80 acres, and we paid $150 a month for this 3-bedroom, two bath house. We got there in the summer, and it was beautiful and hot, and we played in the creeks, and we ran around in the fields and had fun. And the weather pretty soon started to turn. And when I told my colleagues in school where I was living, the address was, well, you go up the Heartland-Quechee Road toward Quechee about 3 miles, and so they understood. And they said, oh, that's the old Proctor place, said one of my teaching colleagues. Another person said, oh, no, that's the real old guy. Said, that's the old Patch place, but I was pretty sure the Patch family had sold out and left the county about half a century before. But things move very slowly in Vermont. We called it the Bacon place because the Bacon family had rented us the place. Now, the Bacons lived on Guam, an island way out in the middle of the Pacific, 10 months of the year, and they had this place in Vermont as a summer house where they went from time to time every year. But because it had been sitting empty 10 months a year, they'd been burglarized several times. So this year they decided to rent it out to us, which was probably a mistake considering how bad we were at maintenance. And they had also done something else for security. They had installed a huge bright blue urban type street light on a 30-foot pole above our yard. The light went on every day at dusk and went off every day at dawn. We had no control of it, and you could see it from quite a distance away. I think they wanted to give the burglars more light to work from. So after we got there, I'd say early September, it was beautiful and summery, but it turned cold and the leaves started to turn. And by mid-October, it was what they call peak foliage weekend in Vermont. The leaves had turned orange and brown and yellow, and the really red ones were the sugar maple trees that the farmers would tap to take their sap and boil down and make maple syrup. And after peak foliage, the leaves all fell, and it was bare tree season, which was bleak and cold, and before the snow came. And after that came way too freaking cold season. How cold was it? Well, if you, when you walked outside, the snot in your nose would immediately freeze. If you had a beard, you would get a muzzle of ice here from the vapor freezing. It got down to 10, 20, 30 below zero in the hills at times, overnight lows. If you were a guy and you peed outside, it would freeze in a golden arc before it ever hit the ground. True story. And if you walk your dog, you really found out the meaning of what a steaming turd is. So one night in the middle of the night, we were all pretty lonely. One of the guys in the house had a girlfriend in Boston who we saw from time to time. But the rest of us, we really only had each other. We had no friends in the area. Everyone we knew had graduated with us and left. There were no girls to date. And so we learned how to make friends with loneliness. Tom had a girlfriend. That was a little different. But one night, in the middle of the night, in the middle of the winter, we decided it would be a really good idea to go play outside. We went out into the yard where there was a sign that said Guam 9,000 miles, pointed west. And we had a pretty big yard, which was always perfectly plowed out. These people knew how to handle snow. We had very few snow cancellation days in school, much to our chagrin. But if the snow drifts were 6 feet or less, which was a fair amount of the time, there was a guy who the Bacon family had arranged would show up with his big macho pickup truck and a snow plow in the front. He would plow us out. If the snow drifts were over 6 feet, a different guy would show up in a huge road grader with a little cab on top and say, "Hi, I'm here to plow you out." So our yard was pretty well plowed the whole time. We went out and it was a beautiful night. The moon was out shining brightly. The snow was coming down in huge flakes. It was absolutely gorgeous. We threw a football around, but it was 10 degrees below zero. And the football was kind of flat and it hurt our hands. So we decided to go for a walk. Now, why? Well, you have to understand we were all intoxicated. And I don't remember whether it was alcohol or we've been smoking pot or we've been dropping some of the hallucinogens we used to favor back in those days, or probably some combination of all of those. But we decided to go for a walk. We walked down below the house, and when we got down there, my roommates went one direction, and I separated and started to walk in a different direction. I started to walk and walk and walk. And as I said, intoxicated. And I walking along, and my sense of time and space started to wobble. And suddenly I realized I'd been walking across Siberia for weeks and maybe even months, and I saw myself as Dr. Zhivago. I was Yuri Zhivago, and I was on my way back to Moscow or St. Petersburg or wherever Lara, the love of my life, was waiting for me. "Wait for me, Lara, I'll be back. I just have to, if I can only make it to the next village, then someone will take me in and thaw me out and feed me. I'll keep coming. It may take weeks, it may take months, but I'll come back to you, Lara." Even though I was very, very aware that the real love of my real life had dumped me really unceremoniously several months before. And I walked along, glorying in the beautiful moonlight and the snow coming down, and I went into a shadow behind a stand of trees, and when I reemerged into the moonlight, I looked around, and there was white sky and white snow everywhere, and I couldn't see the horizon. This is a condition known as whiteout. I had no idea where I was. If you're in a plane and you're in a whiteout, it's really dangerous because you can't see where the sky ends and the earth begins. But just walking around like that, I got very scared because I didn't know where I was. I mean, I saw white, snow, moonlight, tree, but all the trees look alike at that point, especially when you're intoxicated. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be smart about this. I'm just going to walk in a straight line and something will happen. And I trudged along. "Wait for me, Lara, wait for me." And I thought, no, if I go in a straight line and it's the wrong direction, I'm really going to screw myself. I should walk in a circle. That's what I should do.
Oh, no.
So I turned right and I started walking. I turned right again and I started to walk in a big circle. And I was getting a little more scared all the time and very, very cold. And then suddenly I heard voices. "Zay, we're going inside." Who could that be? Maybe the next village was up ahead. Maybe someone can take me in and thaw me out and feed me. And I looked in the distance and I saw 3 figures far away. One of them turned to me and waved me on like that. And I realized, those are my roommates. And I saw beyond them there was a building and the moon about to set. And I looked at the building and I thought, that's our house in Vermont. I'm not in Siberia. And I kept walking along and walking along, and I followed them, and at a certain point, I'd had it. I was tired of the cold. I was tired of the snow. I was tired of teaching for all the wrong reasons. I needed a profession. I needed a soulmate. I needed a girlfriend. But I'd been accepted in the film program at Stanford. California, here I come, right where I'll start over from. I followed them into the house. I went inside, and I looked at the mantle clock, and it turned out that in the weeks and months that I'd been walking across Siberia, 12 minutes had elapsed. And I had a sudden thought, and I went outside, and I looked up at the moon, and I thought, that's not the moon, it's the freaking streetlights. I really had to get out of there. It was time to plan my escape. Thank you.